Hey, Steven, who's not here, if I bought an A7S III, I would be pissed. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a preview of the Sony FX3 cinema camera. Now, before we get too far, I don't have any images, any official images to share with you at the time of making this preview, but I did have a phone call with Sony where we got to see what the camera was all about. But for this video, we're gonna be using the leaked images from Nakashita, because I guess Sony doesn't trust us enough with images and worries that they might leak, but then doesn't give us the images to use in our videos, so that we have to actually use leaked images that come out of Japan, and that's the story of how we got our images. Now, the short preview, if you really want a short preview, is this is an A7S III that just doesn't have an EVF, but as you can tell, there still are a lot of specs to go through, starting with, well, why did they make this camera? Or more importantly, why did they release an A7S III? That's gonna be the big question that we ask at the end of this video. Why did they come out with that when they came out with this bad boy right here? This is the FX3. It is a compact cinema camera, and it falls into the cinema line that Sony has. Now, what type of sensor does it have? Well, it's the same sensor as the A7S III, but they're calling it a 10.2 megapixel sensor because of the aspect of a 4K video frame. But if you were gonna shoot stills, you would get 12 megapixels, just like you would with the A7S III. Now, will you shoot stills, or can you shoot stills with the FX3? The answer is yes. It still has a focal plane shutter, but the question is, why would you do that? It's really not designed for that. You have the ability to do it, but for the most part, if you're gonna shoot stills, you're gonna have a stills camera, and this isn't gonna be it. Not just because it's 12 megapixels, but mostly because it's 12 megapixels. Though you can get great results with 12 megapixels. ISO goes from 80 to 102,400 natively, which is insane, and it expands all the way up to 400 plus thousand. There's 627 phase detect autofocusing points that cover 89% of the frame, which is very similar to what you have in the A7S III. But the biggest design changes, it's an all new body. It's very similar to the A7C that Sony just came out with, but it is a little more chunkier because it has to fit something in there called a fan, which we'll get to a little later on when we talk about it actually having a fan built in. Now, you will notice that it doesn't have an EVF on top or on the side where it is in the more compact cameras. On the side, it has a power switch which goes on and off over there on the left-hand side. But you might be saying, well, what goes in place of the power switch, which used to be right here on your finger where the shutter button is? Well, they put in a power zoom rocker. So if you're using one of their power zoom lenses, you can zoom it right from there, or you could use some of their digital punching in, which Steven says is actually pretty good because you can do some of that zooming right there with that rocker. Now, one of the reasons they took the EVF off of this camera is they wanted a smooth, flat top surface so that they could make this a cage-free design, which means it's pasture raised, which means the hipsters are gonna be happy because it's all or freaking organic. But a cage-free design is actually a pretty cool thing here because they have the 1/4-20 screws all over this camera for different accessories that you can attach to it. That means you don't need to spend extra money for a cage when you're starting out because it's built right in right off the bat. Now, to go along with this, it comes with a top handle to screw into the top, and that allows you to have 2 XLR inputs as well as a 3.5 millimeter mic input and a bunch of other different things, and it is not going to be sold separately. It only can be purchased with this camera, but it comes as an accessory when you purchase it. One of my favorite things on a camera like this are tally lights. Hi guys, I'm Tally. Are you looking for the tally lights? Yeah, so there's about 4 different places lights will blink. There's one on the front, so if you're recording someone, they can see that you're recording them. There's one on the back at the top, which is a nice bar that blinks nice and red. You can set it up so that the LCD screen will show you the red outline when you're recording, and there's also a light up top by the new record button. Also on top, they moved the joystick. It's no longer on the back. It is up top if you want to control stuff from there. Now, there are a few caveats here that some people may not like. There still is no true cinema shutter angle, meaning you can't do 1/48th of a second. You're still at 1/50th of a second. There's no waveforms or vector scopes. Flipping over the paper, we've got 10-bit 422 4K UHD with full pixel readout, no pixel binning, which is the same as the A7S III. Now, if you're wondering, Jared, why do you highlight everything so much on your paper? That's because, well, they're all important for me to read, and it's easier for me to read the blue ink when I highlight it in yellow. Speaking of, can you go ahead and hit that thumbs up like button? Yeah, that thumbs up like button, or just go ahead and like this video. We want to see if it really helps the algorithm. So if you like our videos, maybe it tells more people to go ahead and watch them. Plus, I will appreciate if you would go ahead and do that. You have 4K up to 120 frames per second with a slight 10% crop. You can do 1080 up to 240 frames per second. There's 16-bit DCI RAW 4K up to 60p with a clean out. And there is a dedicated cooling fan inside of this camera. Now, we've heard a lot about other things overheating, like a Canon EOS R5, which we're recording this on in 4K HQ mode right now. That's how we've been doing a lot of our videos for the last 2 or 3 months, and honestly, they've been looking fantastic. And luckily, we haven't run into overheating, which is a good thing for us. But for this cinema line camera, there is a fan built in on the FX3 with 3 different modes. There's auto, so when it needs to blow, it will suck the air in and blow it out. It sucks it in from the bottom and blows it out the side. There's an off mode in case you don't want it at all. And then there is a minimum mode. You know, I don't know what that means. Maybe it's less noise, but we don't know how loud it is because we haven't seen it yet. We haven't heard it yet. We don't have it in hands just now. But Sony said they did a test and they were shooting 4K 60p for 13 hours straight. Of course, the only thing you need to change there is if you run out of memory, so you have to swap out the memory cards, and also you need to plug it into USB-C while it's going. But a fan is a good thing if you're out in a super hot environment and you want to do long form recording and not have to worry about it at all. That's one of the biggest differentiators in this camera from the A7S III. Also, cinema people will be happy that you have the S Cinetone included in this camera. Now, rumor has it that the A7S III will be getting that with a firmware update. Now, Sony could not confirm or deny that, and I think that it was pretty much going to be a confirmation, but they couldn't say so. So that's another differentiator that might not exist between both of these cameras. Let me jump in here real quick and say, are you tired of your friends telling you that all of your photos are so amazing, but you really want to get a professional's opinion on your work that's going to be honest and unmerciful? Well, that guy's me. Head on over to froknosphoto.com/mentorships, where you can sign up for one of 2 different things: a one-on-one 45-minute Zoom call with me, or a 15-minute recorded rapid fire critique. Check them out right now. Pick one to sign up for. And now let's jump back to the video. There's a 3-inch 1.44 million dot vari-angle LCD touchscreen. It uses the new menu system that we found in the A7S III and now the A1, and it's going to be in this FX3. So a lot of people like the flip-out rotatable screen. You have 5-axis IBIS. You have dual card slots, just like we've seen in the A1. That means that you can do CF Express Type A as well as SD. My recommendation is that you use the CF Express Type A cards, which are much more expensive, and Sony is pretty much the only one who has them out right now. You have USB-C charging, you have full-sized HDMI, just like you would expect for a cinema camera just like this, and you have a price point of $38.99, which is, let me do my math, $35.99, $36.99, $37, $38. That's $400 difference between the A7S III and the FX3. Basically, it's probably that accessory that comes in the box with the Cine camera that is making up the difference in price. Now, if you're wondering, can you get that accessory for the A7S III? The answer is yes. It's $3,899 because you have to buy it with the FX3. It's not currently going to be sold separately for that, so you'll have to pick up the FX3. So are you an A7S III owner? Are you pissed off right now? I think the answer to most of that is people are going to say that they're not pissed off in public, but really they are pissed off, because the question is, why would Sony do this? They should have just killed the A7S III line at this point, because the FX3 seems like the right choice, the better choice. No, it does not have an EVF, and I prefer shooting video with an EVF, but a lot of the cinema people don't need the EVF. They rely on a flip out screen or they rely on an external monitor. Now, some people may say, but what about hybrid shooters? To be honest with you, if you're buying an A7S III as a hybrid shooter, you need to be smacked in the face because there's no reason to buy that as a hybrid camera. This camera, the A7S III and the FX3, they are really truly meant to be for shooting video. Can you do stills? Absolutely. But why would you? That's really not the point in my opinion. So who's this camera for? It's for someone who wants to shoot cinema. You want to shoot videos. You want a smaller, lighter cinema camera with a cage-free design so that you can get pasture-raised eggs and whatever you want from it. It just seems like an unbelievable fit if your main focus is shooting video. It is loaded, it is packed, and it's not that expensive at $38.99, and it has a lot of functions. The A7S III is a fantastic camera for shooting video, but I would be absolutely pissed off at Sony right now because a few months after they announce that bad boy and sell a ton of them, they come out with this. I think the majority of the people who bought A7S IIIs don't care about the EVF and don't care about having the ability to really shoot stills so much. So I would be pissed, and I'm sure they're going to be pissed. Sony should have just killed it right off the rip and not come out with an A7S III and just said, look, we're merging it into the Cine line because that's what that bad boy is. What do you think? Share your opinion down below. I'm interested to hear it. Or you could text me at this number right here on the screen. That's my text line, and I can text you back. So ask me questions on it. Thank you very much for watching. Jared, PolandFroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.